Stop it, Leonard. Her scream rings out, piercing through the white wall like shattering glass. 1 second later, the millionaire's leather shoe slams straight into the belly of his pregnant wife. That dry thud tears apart the silence of the private hospital in the heart of Houston. The security camera blinks, capturing the moment blood drips onto the gleaming tile floor. From the end of the hallway, a man charges in, Dr. Alex Carter, former army medic who saved soldiers on the battlefields of Iraq. He grabs the millionaire, pins him hard against the wall, and shouts, "Don't touch her again." In that moment, two worlds collide, power and justice. Just hours later, the video leaks, and America will have to choose sides. Can justice exist when the one with money makes the rules? The first sound is the hurried, heavy clack of shoes on tile. Fluorescent lights overhead reflect cold streaks down the corridor. At the far end, Grace Holloway sits on the examination chair, hands resting on her rounded belly. She is 7 months pregnant and exhausted. St. Gabriel Private Medical Center in Houston was supposed to be a safe place. At least she had believed so. But the man standing beside her, Leonard Holloway, her husband, the owner of half the hospital's shares, never made any place safe. "Another checkup bill," he mutters, his voice is dry as sand. "Every time you come here, I pay for your weakness." Grace looks up, eyes fearful yet still holding their familiar gentleness. "Leonard, this is about the baby," the doctor said. The doctor said. The doctor said. He cuts her off, biting each word. "You always have someone to blame, Grace. Always someone to explain why you're not good enough." The light glints off the glass door, stretching his shadow twice her height. Outside, the noon Texas sky is a flawless blue, in complete contrast to the storm slowly coiling in his eyes. Grace draws a deep breath. "I just want to make sure she's safe." "She?" Leonard laughs. "You're even sure it's a girl? A weak little girl like you?" His voice echoes down the empty hallway. A nurse passes, pauses half a second, then silently turns away. No one wants to get involved with the boss. Grace edges back slightly, hands shielding her belly. "Leonard, not here." "Here? You think these walls will save you?" The chair slams into her knee. Grace stumbles, a choked cry escaping her lips. Pain hits like a blade. She clutches her belly, gasping. Leonard stands there, breathing hard, eyes empty. "Get up. Please. Get up, Grace." Rage spills out of him. He lifts his foot. The heavy shoe crashes down. Grace's scream rips through the air, shredding every other sound. From the end of the hallway, a figure in a green scrub charges like a bullet. Dr. Alex Carter, who had just finished his ER shift, sees the scene through the glass corner. Battlefield instinct kicks in before reason can think. Dear audience, grab a glass of water, take a moment to relax, and keep listening to the story. The twists are still to come. And please drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a joy to see who's joining us from around the world. Drop a 1 in the comments if you find this story gripping, so we can keep bringing you more captivating tales. He runs straight, grabs Leonard's shoulders, and slams him against the wall, voice barking like a military order. "Get your foot off her. Now. Right. Now." The impact echoes. A clipboard clatters to the floor. For an instant, the entire hallway falls dead silent. Only Grace's ragged breathing and the pounding heartbeat in Alex's ears remain. Leonard struggles. "Who the hell are you to?" "Dr. Carter, ER." Alex does not release his grip. "And you?" "Just a coward attacking a pregnant woman." Grace's blood begins to seep through her gown, streaking red across the white floor. Alex signals the nearby nurse. "Call OB emergency code. Prep a stretcher." The nurse freezes half a second, then bolts. Leonard roars, trying to wrench free. "You don't know who I am." "You're right," Alex says quietly. "And I don't need to know to do the right thing." The trauma team floods in. As they lift Grace onto the stretcher, hospital security restrains Leonard. His face pales, not from remorse, but from realizing how many eyes are watching. As the elevator doors close, Alex remains standing, blood on his scrubs. His breath trembles slightly. The familiar rush, adrenaline, screams, the thin line between life and death, returns after years away from the military. But this time, the battlefield is not a distant desert. It is inside the hospital he serves. Inside the delivery room, Grace lies motionless, eyes wide with pain. Is she still alive? Alex leans down, places the stethoscope on her belly. A faint heartbeat sounds, weak, but real. He presses his lips together. I hear her. She's still here. Tears spill from the corners of Grace's eyes. Thank God. As the medical team stabilizes the situation, Alex steps into the hallway, where Leonard is pinned between two security guards. Their eyes meet. You saved my wife, Leonard says hoarsely, but you'll regret saving the wrong person. Alex stares straight, unblinking. I didn't save you. I saved an innocent life. A hospital insider reporter happens to be testing a camera at the hallway's end. The red light blinks. A video file automatically saves the entire incident. No one knows. That clip will shock America overnight. Alex looks down at the floor, where Grace's blood has not yet been wiped clean. He could never have imagined that this brief collision would turn him into the center of a massive war. Between medical ethics and power. Between truth and money. Inside the room, the monitor beeps steadily, mingled with the tiny fetal heartbeat. One life still endures, and a new battle has just begun. 36 hours after the incident, St. Gabriel Hospital is no longer a place of healing. It has become a battlefield of lies. Outside, media vans pack the street. Reporters jostle, cameras aimed at the gate. From a single assault, the case has become a national focal point. The 47-second video of Leonard Holloway stomping on his pregnant wife's belly spreads across social media. Millions of shares, hundreds of thousands of furious comments. Numbered "Justice for Grace" floods Twitter. But inside the building, where light does not reach, the powerful hold a closed-door meeting. Hospital director, Margaret Lang, an older woman with icy eyes, sets her iPad on the table. We are in a PR crisis. Leonard is a strategic investor. Lose him, and the entire funding system collapses. A finance director cuts in. We need silence. Total silence. Delete the original video. Control the medical staff. Especially Dr. Carter. Margaret nods. Who is Carter? Former Army medic. Joined 2 years ago. Has a minor disciplinary record for defying superiors during a surgery. Margaret's lips curl slightly. Good. That means he's easy to remove. An email is drafted right there in the meeting. Dr. Alex Carter is temporarily suspended from duty for violent conduct in the patient area. Reason: violation of occupational safety rules. Not one line mentions the kick, the blood, or the woman who nearly lost her child. Grace lies quietly in the dim afternoon light. Her skin is pale, lips cracked, but in her eyes remains something unbroken. A small, weak, yet persistent spark. A nurse enters. Voice lowered. Someone wants to see you, Grace. Is it Dr. Carter? No. The door opens. A woman in a black suit steps in, eyes sharp. I'm Catherine Bloom, Leonard Holloway's attorney. Catherine sits, places her briefcase on the table. Grace, I'm here to help you end this gently. Leonard is deeply remorseful. He wants to ensure you and the baby are fully cared for. We offer a support payment. $2 million. In exchange for signing this agreement. Grace looks at her, voice trembling but clear. 2 million? To keep me quiet? No. To set you free. Grace gives a faint, twisted smile. Free? But signing a paper that forbids me from telling the truth? Catherine sighs. Grace, sometimes silence is the only way to survive. Grace looks down at her belly, whispers, No. Survival is when my child is born into a world where her mother didn't bow to money. Catherine says nothing more, leaves the document, and exits the room. The instant the door closes, Grace pulls out her phone, opens the video clip sent anonymously. Blurry image, low angle, but unmistakable. Leonard, eyes cold as ice, and that fateful kick. Below the video, don't let them erase the truth. Grace knows who sent it. Alex Carter. Alex sits alone in the dark, phone ringing nonstop. Messages flood in. You're the one who saved that woman, right? The hospital is going to fire you? They're using the video to blame you. On the TV screen, news loops. Texas tycoon Leonard Holloway accused of assaulting pregnant wife. However, hospital representatives state Dr. Carter exhibited unauthorized violence in the patient area. Alex clenches his fists. He has seen comrades fall to bombs and bullets, but never felt this powerless when the attacker is protected by the system. He opens his laptop, loads the original video file he backed up before the security footage was seized. He knows, if justice can be bought, there is only one way left. Bring the truth to light. But what he does not expect, at the same moment, in another sealed room, Leonard is signing contracts with PR and legal teams. Smear him, dig up his military past, call him uncontrolled, PTSD, mentally unstable. When people doubt the hero, they'll forget the crime. A news site runs the headline, "Veteran Doctor Attacks Billionaire Patient, Heroic Act or Reverse Violence." At the same time, Grace receives an email from the Texas Medical Board. "Miss Holloway, for legal reasons, we advise you not to provide information or video related to the incident." She shuts the screen, tears falling silently. But right after, a sound rings, a text from an unknown number. "Grace, don't be afraid. I'm on your side. Alex." She types back, "They want you to stay silent. I stayed silent once before the war. Not this time." Outside the window, Texas rain pours. Heavy drops pound the glass like the drumbeat of an approaching battle. Grace places a hand on her belly, feeling the faint heartbeat inside. She knows. This child is why she cannot back down. On the other side, Alex opens a drawer, takes out his old military ID, U.S. Army, Captain Alexander Carter, and stares at it for a long time. He once fought for America. Now, he will fight for one woman's justice. Sunlight filters through the hospital room curtains, casting wavering streaks across Grace's face. 1 week has passed since that fateful day. Her belly still aches, the purple bruises not yet faded, and the baby inside is weaker than normal. Each time she hears that tiny heartbeat on the ultrasound, she feels both gratitude and fear. The door swings open. This time, not a nurse. It is Catherine Bloom, Leonard's attorney, and behind her, Margaret Lang, the hospital director. The two women enter with a coldness as if everything has already been arranged. Grace tilts her head slightly, voice weary. "You came to check if I'm still alive?" Catherine sets her leather briefcase on the table, calm. "We came to end this, Grace. Leonard has withdrawn from the hospital board and agrees to transfer financial support to you, if you sign here." Margaret cuts in, voice sharp, and simultaneously confirm that Dr. Carter acted beyond authority, causing severe emotional trauma to Mr. Holloway. "If you agree, everything will be settled quietly." Grace looks at the paper in front of her. The cold words like tiny knives. Confidentiality and liability. Waiver agreement. At the bottom, the final line. "Any public action or statement after signing will be considered a breach and prosecuted." She lets out a hoarse laugh, dry as paper. "You want me to call the man who beat me the victim?" Catherine draws a deep breath. "We want you to have a future." "No, you want me to have a price." Grace stares straight. "How much to forget he stomped on my child?" Catherine falls silent. A second later, Margaret stands. "I advise you to think realistically, Grace. Life out there is not for those who fight the powerful. And don't forget, the hospital owns that video." She walks out, leaving the scent of metallic perfume. The door closes, leaving only Catherine. The attorney looks at Grace for a long time. Her voice lowers, no longer sharp. "Grace, I was beaten once, when I was young, but I stayed silent, out of fear, thinking I was weak. Then one day, I realized, silence makes you an accomplice too." Grace looks up, eyes wet. "Then why are you still on his side?" Catherine pauses. "Because sometimes, I'm not brave enough like you." She stands, leaves an envelope on the table. "If you don't sign, they won't stop. They'll destroy Carter's career, smear you, call you crazy, say you faked the pregnancy. They'll choke the truth with money. Be ready." Alex Carter is summoned to the Internal Investigation Office. He passes rows of reporters aiming lenses, muttering, "We save lives. They call it violence." Inside the room, Margaret waits. "Dr. Carter, do you know the storm you've caused?" Alex replies, voice steady. "I only saved a patient." "No." Margaret flips through a file. "You attacked our largest donor. You damaged the hospital's reputation." "Reputation?" He smirks. "If reputation is built on covering for a wife-beater, then it deserves to collapse." Margaret raises an eyebrow, looking at him with cold pity. "You're a good man, Carter, but good men always lose." Alex says nothing. He stands, opens the door. "No. Good men only lose when they stop fighting. Stepping into the hallway, he sees a figure waiting. It is Ethan Ward, a young resident doctor. Ethan glances around, lowers his voice. Dr. Carter, I kept a copy of the video. They're wiping all data, but I backed it up from the secondary server. I sent it to a friend at an independent TV station. Alex stops, a spark in his eyes. You know that could ruin your career? Ethan gives a faint smile. I didn't become a doctor to live in fear. You taught me that. A hot wind blows through, carrying dust and the smell of asphalt. Alex leaves the hospital, weary, but as he looks up at the night sky, he senses something shifting. His phone vibrates. A message from Grace. I didn't sign. They say they'll destroy you, but I didn't sign. He stares at the screen for a long time. The dim light in his eyes suddenly turns to flame. He texts back, "Then we fight together." The editor at Lone Star Daily opens an anonymous email. Attached is a video file. Footage. Leonard Holloway. MP4. The man plays the clip, sees the kick, the scream, blood on the floor, and Leonard's face. He looks up, asks his colleague, "Are we sure we want to air this?" He could sue. The young reporter replies, eyes bright. If the truth makes the rich tremble, then it's news worth running. Phones ring non-stop. Social media explodes again. Texas TV stations broadcast the full video. The anchor's voice rings out, cold and even. This scene has outraged the nation. Texas tycoon Leonard Holloway is accused of assaulting his pregnant wife inside the hospital he himself funds. Grace clenches her hands, tears falling. She doesn't know what the future holds. But at least today, the truth has a voice. In a dark office, Leonard hurls a glass of whiskey at the wall. Shards explode. Carter will pay. I'll make him disappear from Texas. Outside, the doors have opened. The entire country is watching. That night, Houston glows with satellite lights. Every screen, every phone, every news broadcast replays the same clip. The cold kick landing on a pregnant woman's belly. All of America holds its breath. No one asks who she is, where she's from, or why she was attacked. They see only one truth, her blood soaking the hospital floor. Social media erupts. Lock him up. Don't let money blind justice. Justice for Grace. Stand with Dr. Carter. The hashtags spread like wildfire. The nation splits. One side the furious public, the other the silent, trembling elite. Grace sits in a chair, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring blankly at the TV screen. The news loops the scene endlessly. Her face, her fear, and the man who saved her life. The female anchor's voice rings steady. Dr. Alex Carter, who intervened in the incident, is currently suspended from duty. Holloway's legal team states Mr. Leonard is suffering severe emotional trauma. Grace turns off the TV, but the sound echoes in her head. She touches her belly. Now only a dull ache remains. Baby, I'm sorry. I made the whole world see you this way. Suddenly, a knock at the door. She opens it. It is Catherine Bloom, Leonard's attorney, who resigned from the team yesterday. Grace, Catherine says softly. I can't stay with them anymore. I'm here to help you. Help me. Catherine nods. Leonard hired a PR firm. They plan to claim the video is edited, that he suffered emotional assault, and they want to drag Carter down with it. Grace clenches her fists. I won't let them. Catherine looks at her, eyes both admiring and worried. You understand, Grace. You're up against the entire system. They can make you disappear. Grace smiles faintly. I already disappeared inside that marriage for 8 years. Not anymore. Alex Carter sits alone, shirt wrinkled, face clearly exhausted. The bar TV plays the news about the case. A few patrons recognize him. An older man places a hand on his shoulder. You're that doctor, right? I was a soldier. You did the right thing. Everywhere there are powerful people who think they're untouchable. Alex looks at him, nods slightly. Thank you. At that moment, his phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. They're looking for you. Don't go home. He looks up, neon lights reflecting in his eyes. Soldier instinct rises. He leaves the bar, plunges into the night, his shadow blending with the Texas rain. Leonard sits in a dark meeting room, facing an emergency PR team. The PR advisor presents, We've bought all major ad slots. Tomorrow, an exclusive article runs. Businessman Leonard Holloway, victim of a social media storm, will release photos of him and Grace in happier times, plus old medical records showing she had a history of pregnancy-related emotional disorder. Leonard smirks faintly, pours whiskey. Perfect. They'll forget fast. And Carter? He'll lose his license. We've arranged fake interviews with anonymous colleagues, saying Carter once lost control. Leonard nods. Kill him with silence. In a dark corner of the internet, independent podcaster Maya Ross records. She was the first to receive the original video from an anonymous source. Maya's voice rings over the airwaves. This is not just about one kick. This is about how justice is bought, how silence is packaged with money, and this is the truth they don't want you to know. The podcast, The Holloway Files, hits Hashone within 12 hours. Maya's voice spreads across America like a second, deeper, fiercer wave. Grace wakes to her phone. Hundreds of messages, emails, words of encouragement. Unknown women send photos of their children with the words, "Thank you. You gave us the courage to speak." She sobs, hands trembling. "I won't be silent anymore, my love." In the hallway outside, Catherine speaks on the phone with reporter Maya. "We have more evidence. Financial records from the Women Rise Foundation charity. Leonard laundered money through it. Go public, and he collapses." Maya replies, "I'll run it in the next episode, but brace yourself, they'll hit back." People gather at the gate, holding signs. "Justice for Grace. Protect Dr. Carter. End abuse of power." Reporters swarm as Grace appears, face pale but eyes bright. A reporter shouts, "Miss Holloway, are you afraid to face your powerful husband?" Grace pauses. "I was afraid, but not anymore. Because when I stayed silent, I nearly lost the child inside me. No one should have to stay silent to survive." Applause erupts. Hundreds repeat, "No one should have to stay silent to survive." On the hospital rooftop, Alex watches the crowd. He is no longer isolated, but he understands. From here, they are not just facing one man, but a system that fears the truth. The Texas sky that morning hangs heavy with gray clouds. A cool, early autumn wind whips through the American flags in front of the Houston District Courthouse, making the red, white, and blue fabric flutter like the breath of a nation waiting for something. In front of the gate, a long line of people jostles. Reporters, protesters, and those who simply want to witness with their own eyes. They hold high signs that have become the slogan, "No money above justice. Protect Grace. Protect truth." In a black car parked behind the barrier, Grace sits silently, hands clasped, skin pale from tension. She wears a simple cream dress, needle marks still on her wrist. Her eyes reflect in the rearview mirror. Fragile, but bright. Beside her, attorney Catherine Bloom holds a thick stack of papers. "Are you ready?" Her voice low but firm. Grace nods slightly. "I have nothing left to lose. Except the truth." The car door opens. Light floods in. Camera shutters sound like thunder. Every step, Grace takes up the courthouse stairs, is a wave of media. On the other side, Leonard Holloway steps down from a luxury SUV, black suit perfectly tailored, eyes cold as steel. Reporters surge forward, microphones aimed at him. "Mr. Holloway, any words before the charges?" He only smiles faintly, lips curving perfectly. Fake news, social media garbage. The truth will come out. The courthouse doors open. All light seems swallowed. Inside the courtroom, the air is thick. On the right, Leonard's legal team. 5 people, suits crisp, eyes icy. On the left, Grace and Catherine, just 2 women. 2 light-colored outfits amid a sea of black suits. Behind them, in the second row, Alex Carter sits, silent as a statue. He looks at Grace, and when their eyes meet, the world seems to pause for a beat. The judge bangs the gavel. The trial of Leonard Holloway, charged with assault on a pregnant woman, officially begins. The prosecution opens with the video. The courtroom darkens. The only light is from the large screen, where the shaky footage plays. The kick, the scream, the blood streak on the white floor, and Dr. Carter's hands pulling Leonard away from the woman. Everyone holds their breath. A few women in the room cover their mouths, stifling sobs. When the video ends, silence blankets the room as if no one dares breathe. Catherine stands, voice even and clear. Your Honor, this is not an edited video. This is the original security footage, recovered from the backup server by Dr. Ethan Ward, who is present here today. Ethan steps to the witness stand, hands trembling slightly. I backed up the video. I knew they would delete it, and I couldn't let justice be deleted too. Leonard's attorney immediately objects, voice sharp as a blade. This witness violated internal confidentiality rules. Testimony is invalid. The judge bangs the gavel. Dr. Ward, are you prepared to take responsibility for your actions? Ethan looks straight ahead. I'd rather lose my job than lose my conscience. A small wave of applause rises from the gallery, quickly stifled. Grace's turn comes. She stands, hand lightly on her belly, voice trembling but resolute. Leonard Holloway was my husband. For 8 years I lived in fear. I thought silence would protect my child, but I was wrong. Silence only protects the abuser. She pauses, tears falling, but does not lower her head. That day, when he stomped on me, I heard my baby's heartbeat stop for a second. I thought I was dying. But when Dr. Carter rushed in, I knew there are still people who dare to do what's right, no matter the cost. Catherine nods slightly, signaling her to stop. The entire courtroom remains silent, a different silence, one of respect, of understanding. The defense attorney stands, voice cold and slick as oil. Mrs. Holloway, do you have a history of mental instability? Have you ever been treated for pregnancy-related depression? Grace lifts her head. Yes, but I was depressed because I was abused. I was depressed because I had to pretend to be happy. The attorney presses his lips, unable to respond. When Leonard's turn arrives, he steps to the stand, face struggling to stay calm. It was an accident, he says. I was only trying to hold her back. The video doesn't tell the whole story. She had threatened to leave me, taking the child. I lost control, but I never meant to hurt anyone. The judge asks, then why did you order the video deleted? He hesitates. I didn't want the public to misunderstand. From the back row, Alex whispers, misunderstand? Or understand too clearly? Deliberation lasts 2 hours. Outside the courthouse, the crowd waits. Online, millions follow live. A nation holds its breath. When the judge returns, the air freezes. After reviewing the evidence and witness testimony, the court finds defendant Leonard Holloway guilty of assault causing serious injury to a pregnant woman. Sentence: 15 years imprisonment, no early parole. The gavel bangs, and Grace's tears burst forth. Alex stands. In that moment, he hears nothing, only the image of the woman sitting there, hand on her belly, a faint smile amid the storm of camera flashes. A part of him, the part that once believed in justice, that fought amid sand and blood, is reborn. Leonard is handcuffed, head slightly bowed, but as he passes Grace, he leans in, whispering just for her to hear. You won today, but the game isn't over. Grace looks at him, calm. No, it's only just begun. For me, and for every other woman. The night rain in Houston does not stop. Raindrops patter on the old courthouse roof, streaking blurred golden light from street lamps. Outside, the crowd has dispersed, leaving only soaked protest signs scattered on the ground. In a shadowed corner of the courthouse backyard, Grace stands alone. Her thin coat clings with water, but she doesn't notice. She looks up at the gray sky, exhaling a long breath, as if for the first time in months she can breathe deeply without pain. Catherine approaches, holding an umbrella over her. You won, Grace. Finally, you won. Grace smiles, a weak but real smile. Yes, but why does it feel so empty? Catherine is silent. She understands. A victim's victory never brings complete joy. It only leaves wounds that can speak. In the rain, Grace says softly, he'll be in prison. But what about those who covered for him, who were complicit, who stayed silent for fear of losing money, losing their seats? Who will judge them? Catherine looks at her. There are trials where justice doesn't have room for every sin. But you open the first door. The rest, the next generation will walk through. A car pulls up at the gate. Alex Carter steps out. No umbrella, just a soaked thin coat. He walks toward them, streetlight glinting in his eyes like shards of metal. Grace. She turns. Their eyes meet. In that moment, No crowd, no cameras, only two people who once shared a life-or-death instant in a white hallway. You okay? She asks. Alex nods slightly. They reverse the suspension. I can go back to work, but I'm not sure I want to return there. Why? He looks into the distance, rain hitting his face, voice low. Because now, every time I walk that hallway, I hear you scream, blood hitting the floor, a child not yet born. As a doctor, I can save lives, but as a human, I can't save myself from that memory. Grace is silent. Wind blows, rustling the umbrella edge. You saved me, and because of you, this baby is still here. She places a hand on her belly, where the tiny heartbeat persists like a miracle. Alex follows her gaze, his eyes softening. I only did what was right. You're the one who dared to live with it. A lightning bolt flashes, slicing the sky. Distant thunder rolls like the drum of fate. The media moves on to other stories. America, busy with fresh scandals, gradually forgets the Holloway case. But in the smallest corners, the story lives on. Online, thousands of women share their stories with the hashtag number #SpeakForGrace. They tell of slaps, threats, and nights of silence stretching like endless darkness. Grace reads each line, tears streaming. I'm not alone anymore. He returns to the hospital, not as an ER doctor, but as a psychological counselor for young physicians. The hospital, once a place of silence out of fear, begins to change. New rules are set. Training courses on domestic violence and medical ethics are launched. On his desk, an unsigned letter arrives. Scrawled words, I was the nurse who saw it that day. I was afraid. I turned away. But I want to say sorry, and thank you. Alex folds the letter, tucks it in a drawer beside his old military ID. He smiles faintly. Not forgiveness, but understanding that change starts with one person daring to stand. Grace is discharged. Her belly rounds more. The baby lives. Fragile, but resilient. Catherine walks beside her, the older woman's hand gripping hers tightly. You've given hope to so many, Grace. Name the child. A name that carries light. Grace looks up at the clear sky after the rain. I'll call her Hope. They smile together. No more words needed. Alex stands where he once rushed to save her. The hallway is repainted, cleaner and brighter. But in his eyes, everything remains the same. The glaring white light, the faint fetal heartbeat, the heart-wrenching scream. He closes his eyes. For the first time in months, he exhales a long breath, no longer trembling. Justice is never clean, he says softly. It's always stained with blood, but it's the blood of those who dare to speak. In the distance, Grace steps into the courtyard, hand on her belly, eyes turned toward him. No words needed. They both know. This is not the end. Only a pause before the next journey. 14 months after the trial, Houston changes seasons. Wind carries the scent of pine and lazy golden sunlight spills over freshly painted streets. Life, as always, moves on. But for Grace, time is split in two. Before that kick, and after it. This morning she stands in the newly built courtyard of St. Gabriel Hospital. The plaque at the gate gleams. The Grace Holloway Healing Wing, for women who survived. Her trembling fingers touch the engraved letters of her name, not from pride, but knowing. Every character here is written in tears and courage. The door opens. Inside are new therapy rooms, where abused women receive care, where beds are placed by windows so light always enters. She walks slowly down the hallway, fingertips brushing the pristine white walls. The smell of fresh paint mingles with soft lavender. On the walls, photos are hung. Faces of women who dared to speak. Each face is a story, a scar, a new life. In one corner, a little girl laughs. Hope. Her eyes the color of the sky after rain, deep and clear as if holding the whole world her mother fought to keep. Grace lifts her, presses the tiny face to her neck. The child's breath is warm and gentle like a prayer. You know, Hope, she whispers, you're why I'm still here. The media arrives again, but this time, no harsh questions, no cold lights, only applause. Catherine Bloom sits in the front row, silver hair shining in the sun. She looks at Grace with the eyes of someone who has seen too much pain and finally witnesses a new sprout rising from ashes. Alex Carter stands quietly at the back of the crowd. Simple suit, hands in pockets, eyes following every step of the mother and child. He never sought glory or thanks, just seeing hope, the baby who nearly died from violence, now laughing brightly in the sunlight, is enough to know. Every sacrifice had meaning. The MC invites Grace to speak. Applause swells, spilling out like waves. She stands at the microphone, wind lifting a few strands of hair. She does not read a speech, does not look at notes. She speaks from the heart. That day, I thought I would die. But someone saved me, and a nation heard my cry. I learned that justice is not something distant. It begins the moment we dare to tell the truth. I built this place, not to retell tragedy, but so other women have a place to start over, so they understand. Pain does not define us. Rebirth is what makes us live. She pauses, bows her head, and in that silent second, wind sends white ribbons fluttering around the fountain. Applause erupts, ringing like the first rain on parched earth. Alex watches the scene, smiles faintly. He knows justice, like life, never comes easily. It must be seized, with blood, with loss, and with faith that one person can make a difference. Grace sits on a wooden bench, Hope asleep in her arms. Alex approaches, holding a bunch of lavender. Still in the habit of giving flowers to patients? She laughs. No, he replies. Only to survivors. They sit in silence for a while, listening to birdsong and wind rustling through the trees. Do you ever get tired? She asks. Of course, but tired doesn't mean stop. So what will you do next? Help others dare to speak. I'm starting a free medical support program for abuse victims. Catherine is joining too. Grace looks at him, eyes soft as late-day sun. You never stopped fighting, did you? Alex smiles faintly. I just don't want another Hope to be born in fear. The sun slowly sets, gilding the entire garden. Children's laughter echoes somewhere. Grace looks up at the sky she once thought she would never see again. She says softly, as if sending words to those still afraid to speak. Sometimes, you have to walk through hell to know what light is, and if you're in the dark, please don't stay silent, because the moment you speak, someone will hear. She bends down, kisses her daughter's forehead. Hope smiles in her sleep, tiny hand clutching her mother's shirt. In the distance, Alex leaves the garden, walking slowly through the old hallway. He stops, looks once more at the plaque bearing Grace's name. A drop of sunlight falls on his face, golden, warm, and quiet. The door closes behind him, but this time, no screams, no blood, only peace. Evening falls on Houston. In a small room of the healing wing, Grace sits by the window, cradling Hope. The child sleeps soundly, breath steady like the heartbeat of a world healing. Outside, wind carries the faint chime of wind bells. That sound, light yet clear, like the voices of women once silenced, now ringing again. On the table, Grace places an old photo. The moment she stood in court, tears falling but eyes bright. She no longer looks at it with pain, but with gratitude. No one is truly healed by a verdict alone, she thinks, but by daring to start again, even from ashes. Somewhere else in the city, Alex Carter sits in his office, reading about another abuse case. He opens his computer, types the first lines of a new project. The cost of silence, the stories yet untold. He knows fighting darkness is not winning in a single day, but keeping the fire lit every time it returns. Night thickens, but in one small corner of Houston, light spills from a window, where a mother hums a wordless lullaby to her child. And amid the city's noise, a tiny sound rises. Hope's breathing, small, but enough to remind America that life goes on, truth endures, and silence no longer holds power. Oh my God, she just pushed a pregnant woman down the stairs in the middle of the courthouse. The scream echoed through the polished marble hallway, where every gaze froze in place. Cameras flashed relentlessly. A woman in a red dress stood rigid, her hands trembling, while Elena Monroe, 7 months pregnant, tumbled toward the void. But just before tragedy struck, a strong hand caught her. And when he looked up, the world seemed to hold its breath. The man who saved her was no stranger. He was Ethan Monroe, federal prosecutor, and her brother. The story that unfolded after that push would not only shake the courthouse, but tear down the curtain of power itself. That morning, the courthouse hummed like a colossal machine. operating in the cold rhythm of justice. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting a crystalline glow on the marble floor, chilling in its clarity. The air carried the scent of fresh paper, coffee, and floor polish, blending into a sterile perfection until she walked in. Elena Monroe, 7 months pregnant, stepped into the grand lobby with slow but resolute steps. Her brown hair was neatly tied back, her pale blue maternity dress swaying gently with each breath. Her hand rested on her belly, feeling the tiny movements of her child, as if it whispered, "Stay strong, Mom." Today was supposed to be the final hearing of her protracted divorce, where she would sign the papers to end a marriage that had long decayed. But a premonition made her heart race not from fear, but from a vague unease, as if fate waited at the end of the hall. The courthouse that morning wasn't just filled with footsteps and murmurs. There was another sound, one no one could hear, the cracking of a soul. At the end of the corridor, Richard Hayes, her husband, leaned against the railing. His black suit was impeccable, his tie perfectly knotted, his eyes cold and fixed ahead. Beside him stood Maya Grant, the woman in a deep red dress, her high heels like weapons. The red was so vivid it seemed to challenge the courthouse's sterile light. Elena froze when she saw them. No words were needed. Everything was said in their silence. Maya tilted her head, her smile sharp as a blade. She lightly touched Richard's shoulder, marking her territory. The man who once kissed Elena's forehead every morning now stood motionless, his gaze empty. No nod, no greeting. Only the coldness of someone who had erased another from their heart. Elena swallowed her bitterness. She just wanted to walk past, sign the papers, leave this courthouse, and never look back. But Maya had no intention of letting her go in peace. Dear audience, grab a glass of water, take a moment to relax, and keep listening to the story. The twists are still to come. And please drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a joy to see who's joining us from around the world. Drop a 1 in the comments if you find this story gripping, so we can keep bringing you more captivating tales. Careful, darling. Maya's voice rang out, smooth as silk but sharp as a knife. No one wants to see you stumble in front of the judge. A few clerks glanced up but quickly looked away. Barbs like that weren't uncommon in the courthouse, but this time, the air felt different, thick, heavy, like a storm about to break. Elena stopped. Her eyes shimmered in the white light. "What do you want from me?" Maya stepped closer, her heels clicking rhythmically on the marble floor, each step cold and deliberate. "I want everyone to know who the real winner is." Richard started to speak, but Maya raised a hand, her smile unwavering. "You can take his signature, but you'll never take back your place in his life." It happened in seconds, but time seemed to freeze. Elena turned away, trying to stay calm. Her heart pounded. Her breaths were short, jagged. Her hand gripped the edge of her purse, nails digging into her skin. The baby kicked hard as if warning her. Her foot touched the edge of the marble staircase. A court clerk passing by paused, his eyes worried. "Mrs. Hayes, are you okay?" She nodded faintly. "I'm fine." But no one believed her. And then it happened. A push. Swift, forceful, so sudden no one could react. Elena's body lost balance, her feet slipping off the first step. The world spun, sounds faded. Papers in her hand fluttered upward like white birds. Screams echoed from every direction. In the fleeting moment between falling and crashing, between life and death, Elena saw it all. Richard's panicked face, his hand half raised but unmoving. Maya's triumphant smile, and the red blinking light of a security camera, the silent witness to the crime. It all merged into a warped painting of reality. She reached out, her trembling fingers grasping at nothing but cold air. A scream tore through. "She's falling." The voice ripped the air apart. The world became a whirlwind. Each step was a slash at her breath, each second a fragile line between existence and oblivion. Then, suddenly, a hand gripped her. Strong, steady, fierce. Time stopped. Elena gasped, tears blurring her vision. She couldn't see her rescuer's face, only felt the warmth of his hand, his rapid but controlled breathing. As he pulled her up, the entire lobby fell silent. Cameras flashed. Reporters pushed forward. Maya stood frozen, her hand still in the air, unsure whether to retract it or feign shock. Richard stood rigid, his face ashen. The man who saved her looked up, his eyes sharp, furious and chillingly cold. A shiver ran through the crowd as they recognized him. Not just a passerby, not just a witness. He was Ethan Monroe, federal prosecutor, and the brother of the woman who nearly died. Silence enveloped the courthouse. But beneath the marble floor, justice had just awakened. The crowd's gasps still echoed through the courthouse halls. Amid the chaos, Ethan Monroe held on to Elena, his hand gripping her arm, suppressing his trembling with every ounce of strength he had left. Sweat beaded on his temple, but his eyes never left her pale face. "Stay calm. You're safe now," he said softly, his voice low and firm. Elena trembled, half-conscious. The sounds sequitur her blurred, as if submerged in water. The cold scent of polished stone, the metallic tang of blood, the heavy perfume from the red dress, it all swirled together. In her ears, she heard the click of cameras, the shouts of court staff, the stampede of footsteps. The world spun, but Ethan's hand was the only anchor tethering her to reality. He gently helped her sit on a bench by the wall. "Breathe, Elena, deeply, slowly." Each breath tore at her chest, but they steadied. The baby moved faintly, a fragile sign of life. She broke into tears, not from fear, but from knowing she was still here. Ethan looked up, his usually calm, rational eyes now burned with suppressed fury. He glanced toward the top of the stairs where Maya Grant still stood, her hands trembling, her lips pale. In that moment, Maya's arrogance vanished. She was just a red silhouette, lost in the silent crowd. "What did you just do?" Ethan asked, his voice not loud but piercing, cutting through the crowd's heavy breaths. No one answered. Richard took a step back, his face bloodless. Maya opened her mouth, her voice hoarse. I didn't mean to." She tripped. "Don't." Ethan cut her off, his gaze icy. "Everything you say is being recorded." A few in the crowd murmured, "Who is he?" A reporter gasped, "Federal prosecutor Ethan Monroe. Her brother." The words sparked like a match in gasoline. Every camera turned to him. Flashes lit up, capturing the moment the man who saved his sister stood in the courthouse where justice itself wavered. Ethan took a deep breath, regaining composure. He signaled a security guard. "Call medical, and check the security footage for this area. I want a copy now." The guard hesitated under Ethan's intensity, then nodded and ran off. Maya gripped the railing, her voice shaking. "I told you," she tripped. "I didn't." Ethan locked eyes with her. "Do you have a lawyer? If not, I suggest you get one." The words, though soft, froze the air. The whispers stopped. Richard stepped forward, trying to stay calm. "Ethan, it's a misunderstanding. Ethan's gaze silenced him. "You should stay quiet, Mr. Hayes. Everything you say is being recorded, and you were at the scene of an assault." A phone rang somewhere. Keyboards clacked, security radios crackled. The once stately courthouse turned into a crime scene. On the floor, Elena's scattered papers lay silent evidence of the chaos. Maya began to cry, not from guilt but from fear. She turned to Richard for protection, but his eyes held only panic. He'd seen the security camera. He knew. The evidence was undeniable. Ethan knelt beside Elena, his voice gentle. "Is the baby okay?" She nodded faintly. "I think so. Just sore." "Don't talk. Medics are coming." He held her hand, his palm cold but his eyes warm. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let you go through this alone." Elena didn't respond. She stared at the blinking red light on the ceiling. In her tear-filled eyes, it gleamed like a torch, small but steadfast. A guard returned, breathless. "The camera caught everything, Mr. Monroe. I'm sending a copy to security." Ethan nodded. "Good. Seal the footage. No one touches it." Maya stepped back. "Wait, you can't." "Miss Grant," Ethan said, his voice like thunder. "Justice doesn't need your permission." The air grew thick. A few reporters kept snapping photos, but no one dared speak. Elena sat still, her hand on her belly. Each heartbeat in her body now mingled with the approaching footsteps of police. When medics arrived, they knelt beside Elena. One placed a stethoscope on her belly, listening in silence. Then he looked up. Heart rate stable. Mother and baby are safe. Elena sobbed, covering her face, tears mixing with sweat and relief. Ethan scanned the courthouse lobby, once a symbol of law. now a battleground where justice was tested. He knew there was no turning back. Everything would change. He'd have to confront the very people he once sat beside in courtrooms and perhaps the system he represented. But as he looked at his sister, the pregnant woman who'd escaped death, sitting amid witnesses and cameras, he understood that sometimes justice didn't start in a courtroom, but in the moment someone refused to stay silent. Outside, the wail of an ambulance cut through the silence. Ethan stood, whispering to a guard, "Secure the footage. We just witnessed a crime." His eyes turned to Maya, the woman in red, trembling with fear yet still holding her posture. She didn't know that, from the moment of the push, the courthouse's light no longer shone for her. Police approached, asking both to stay for statements. Maya argued, her voice shrill. Richard tried to intervene but was stopped. Ethan watched silently, his face calm but his eyes blazing with resolve. A reporter whispered to a colleague, "This is the case of the year." But for Ethan, it wasn't news. It was the start of a war. He turned to Elena. "You won't face them alone anymore," he said softly. The white light from the ceiling fell on her face, washing away her tears. For a moment, Elena looked at him, her eyes full of gratitude and a new fear, the fear of the truth about to be unveiled. That afternoon, sunlight poured through the courthouse's tall glass windows, casting blinding streaks on the marble floor, but no one saw its beauty anymore. The air inside was thick, as if holding a secret too vast, making every breath heavy. Ethan Monroe walked slowly through the corridor, his shoes striking the stone with steady, resolute thuds. His face was calm, but his eyes held the coldness of a man ready to wage war. In his hand was a file from security, a copy of the East Corridor's camera footage. He'd watched it 3 times, each viewing chilling him further. The footage was clear, undeniable. The push, Maya's smirk, Richard's silence, his hand catching Elena just seconds from disaster. It was all there, the truth, raw and merciless. He paused at the railing, looking down at the lobby. Reporters had flooded in like a storm. Microphones, cameras, and flashes wove a chaotic web, blurring the courthouse's solemnity. Shouts, whirring cameras, and footsteps chasing headlines, it was suffocating. Yet amid the chaos, Maya Grant stood out, as if she were the star of the drama. She stood on the steps, draped in a long red coat, her face pale but meticulously made up. Every word she spoke was caught by microphones, every smirk magnified by cameras. "It was an accident," she said, her voice soft but resonant. "I had no intention of harming anyone. People only see what they want to see." Her smile was calculated. Ethan watched from afar. He saw what she was doing, shaping the narrative, playing the victim. He didn't speak, didn't step down. He let her lies expose themselves, because he knew, in a world obsessed with images, only real evidence could tear through the prettiest mask. Outside, the news spread like wildfire. Sensational headlines flooded the air. Mistress of tycoon pushes pregnant wife in courthouse. Justice on camera, video shocks the city. The footage leaked nobody knew how. Within hours, millions of views. Every frame was an accusation. Somewhere, Maya watched the video on her phone, her grip whitening her knuckles. "They edited it," she muttered. "I didn't push her. I just touched her lightly." Richard stood beside her, silent, his eyes shadowed. "No one will believe you," he said quietly. "The video's too clear." Maya turned, her voice sharp. "You're the only one who can make them believe. You owe me that." He avoided her gaze. "I owe someone else more." Upstairs, Ethan was speaking with the head of security. "I want all data stored in 2 places. The original in the vault, a copy sent to the federal prosecutor's office, and I want access to this camera locked down." The head nodded. "Yes, sir." Ethan folded the file, his voice low. "Justice begins with transparency, and today, it won't be erased by power or money." But deep down, he knew the powerful always found a way. He'd seen too many cases vanish for lack of evidence, despite knowing the evidence once existed. So he didn't just store the video, he sent copies to 3 other locations, under 3 different names. A precaution only those who'd seen justice twisted would understand. That afternoon, as Ethan left the courthouse, the sky turned leaden. A light rain fell, reflecting streetlights in long streaks on the pavement. He opened his phone, receiving a message from the hospital. Elena was awake. He took a deep breath, hurrying through the streets. In his chest, anger was transforming into something else, not rage, but resolve. At the hospital, Elena sat propped against the headboard, her face pale but her eyes alert. When she saw him, she gave a weak smile. "You're here." Ethan sat beside her, taking her hand. "I'm not leaving you alone again. Are you okay?" "I'm alive. The baby's alive. That's enough." He nodded, but his eyes betrayed worry. "You need to stay strong. Things are about to get loud." Elena looked out the window, where rain fell silently. "I don't want noise, Ethan. I just want the truth," he replied softly. "Then we'll let the truth speak." Meanwhile, at the courthouse, Richard was in a closed meeting with his lawyer and Maya. "Shut down the media now," the lawyer said urgently. "If that video goes national, we're done." Maya stood abruptly. "I'll sue them. I'll say she faked it, fell on purpose to get attention." Richard frowned. "Don't. No one will believe her anymore. I'll handle it my way." She glared at him, eyes blazing. "Your way got us into this hell." As night fell, Ethan remained in the hospital room. Outside, the rain poured harder. On the wall-mounted TV, the evening news replayed the camera footage, the cold light reflecting Maya's face as she pushed Elena. The anchor spoke gravely. "This isn't just a personal matter. It's a reminder that no one is above the law." Ethan turned off the TV. He stood, stepping into the hospital corridor. In the dim light, his reflection stared back from the glass, the face of a man carrying a war on his shoulders. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was a witness, a brother, the man who caught his sister's hand before the world let her fall. And now, he wouldn't let go. The next morning, the top floor of the federal courthouse stood like a silent fortress. The rain had stopped, but heavy gray clouds lingered, as if the sky itself pondered what was to come. Ethan Monroe stood by a glass window, looking down at the crowd outside the courthouse gates. A large banner hung on the fence. "Justice for Elena. No one is above the law." Chants, signs, and news cameras formed a swelling tide. Ethan knew the public had chosen a side, but he also knew that the brighter the spotlight, the deeper the shadows crept. He set his file on the table. Inside were copies of the data, statements, and the camera transcript he'd secured. One copy was with the prosecutor, but the rest he kept for himself because he no longer trusted anyone. A knock sounded. Helen Brooks, the chief prosecutor, entered, her face stern. "Ethan," she said, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "We've reviewed the video. It's clear Maya Grant pushed Elena, but Richard Hayes seems to be trying to manipulate the case." Ethan nodded slowly. "He'll do more than manipulate. He'll bribe, threaten, and if needed, erase the evidence." Helen looked at him, her eyes a mix of exhaustion and admiration. "What are you going to do?" Ethan's voice was low. "Bring the truth to light, whatever the cost." That afternoon, in a luxurious penthouse overlooking the Hudson River, Richard Hayes sat across from Maya. The room glowed with chandelier light, but it couldn't dispel the chill between them. "You're ruining everything," he said, his voice low and strained. "The press is tearing us apart." "Us?" Maya laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "No, Richard. Me. You're still in your office, while I'm hunted by reporters like prey. Because you lost control." She stood, her eyes blazing. "Don't you get it? She took everything from me, my dignity, my chance. I only pushed lightly, but now the world sees me as a murderer." Richard clenched his fists, his voice cold. "I'll fix it. That camera footage will disappear." Maya froze. "What did you say?" "I have people in security. They control the server access. Tonight, the original will be gone. Ethan won't let that happen. Ethan has the law. I have money." Richard's eyes gleamed with arrogance. "And money always beats the law." Maya stared at him, a flicker of fear mixed with contempt crossing her face. She realized that in his eyes, everyone was a pawn, even her. And in that moment, something in her began to waver. Night. The courthouse basement, where the server room glowed faintly green. Two figures appeared, a guard and a systems engineer. "Urgent order from above," the guard said. "Back up and delete the East Corridor camera data." The engineer frowned. "No official order came through. I need supervisor confirmation." "You don't get it," the guard hissed. "This is big. Do it, or you're out of a job tomorrow." The engineer hesitated, then typed a few commands. The server lights blinked. Data scrolled across the screen. A video file began to vanish. And then, a small click sounded. The door swung open. Ethan Monroe appeared, his special access badge still glowing on his chest. Deleting what? His voice was low, cold. The men startled. We're just following orders. Ethan stepped forward, staring at the screen running the deletion command. He yanked the main cable, decisive. The system shut down, the green light fading. Whose orders? He asked again, his gaze piercing. No one answered. He tilted his head, a faint smile on his lips. I'm guessing Richard Hayes. One man trembled. Mr. Hayes said he'd take responsibility. Let's see how he does that. Ethan pulled out his phone, calling Helen directly. Helen, I need a data audit team now. Someone's erasing evidence. Meanwhile, at the penthouse, Richard was pouring a drink. Maya stood by the window, watching the city's twinkling lights. She spoke softly. You've already done something, haven't you? Just cleaning up. Cleaning up or burying? He turned, his smile cold. You worry too much. She stared at him long and hard. Ethan won't let this go. Ethan will learn that sometimes justice isn't for everyone. Maya fell silent, her gaze on the city, a strange feeling rising, not fear anymore, but regret. She'd thought she understood power, until it began to consume her. 3 a.m. An anonymous email was sent to major news outlets. Video file stored at Federal Courthouse East Corridor 9:47 a.m., October 21. Attached, the original footage. Sender, unknown. By morning, every network aired the unedited video. Ethan watched in silence. Helen sat beside him, a tired smile on her face. Unbelievable. Someone leaked it before we could hold a press conference. Could be someone inside the court, Ethan said, or someone who wanted the truth to speak for itself. Helen nodded. Whoever it was, they saved justice again. Across the city, Richard smashed a glass, blood dripping onto the carpet. Maya watched, her eyes no longer fearful, just empty. You thought money could buy justice, she said softly. But you forgot justice has a memory. That morning, the city sky was cloaked in leaden clouds. Last night's rain left shimmering puddles on the courthouse steps, reflecting hundreds of camera flashes. Reporters crowded the entrance. Shouts, microphones, and flashing lights crackled like lightning. The courthouse today wasn't just a place of judgment, it was a stage where justice had to prove it still existed. The doors opened. Ethan Monroe stepped in, his face calm, his dark suit pristine. Beside him was Elena, pale but with clear, steady eyes, each step a quiet declaration. Her hand rested on her belly, her breathing deep and sure. Across the room, Richard Hayes sat at the defendant's table. His posture was stiff, his tie like an invisible noose. Maya Grant sat beside him, her face bare of makeup, her hair neatly tied, but her eyes still defiant. The courtroom fell silent as the judge entered. The trial for the assault of Elena Monroe at the Courthouse of Justice officially begins. Helen Brooks rose first. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. We have the original video of the incident, along with the defendant's phone data before and after the assault. Both attempted to destroy evidence and intimidate witnesses. Today, justice will not be distorted. Her voice echoed in the marble-clad room, crisp and sharp as a blade cutting through silence. Ethan sat quietly at the prosecution table. He wasn't the defense attorney, but Helen had allowed him to represent Elena, a special role as both witness and guardian of the truth. On the defense side, Richard's lawyer stood, his tone measured. Your Honor, we maintain this was an accident. Emotions flared, the situation was tense, and the reaction was unintentional. My client deeply regrets it. Ethan tilted his head, his eyes cold. Regret doesn't erase actions, he said softly, but loud enough for the room to hear. The judge nodded slightly. Prosecution, present your evidence. The large courtroom screen lit up. The familiar corridor appeared white light, marble steps, passers-by, and then, that moment, the push, the scream. Ethan's hand pulling her back just in time. The room held its breath. Some reporters in the back covered their mouths. Maya lowered her head, her shoulders trembling slightly. Helen looked at the judge. This is direct evidence of assault, but there's more. She held up a small USB. This is data extracted from Richard Hayes's phone. A message sent to Miss Grant 24 hours before the incident. When she falls, it's over. The courtroom buzzed. Richard paled. Maya glanced at him, her eyes a mix of shock and betrayal. That's not my message, Richard shouted. Ethan stood slowly. Your Honor, allow me to provide context. He opened his file, flipping to a bank statement. 3 transfers from Mr. Hayes to Miss Grant in the week before the incident, totaling $50,000. Noted as consulting fees. Yet no contract exists between them. This wasn't consulting, it was a plan. The room fell silent. The judge looked at Ethan. Mr. Monroe, anything further? Ethan nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to present a recording from a security guard. This is a conversation between the defendants immediately after the assault. He played the audio. Richard's voice rang clear. We need to delete that footage. No one can see it. What if they do? Maya's voice trembled. I'll handle it. No one stops me. The sound landed like an invisible verdict. Richard bowed his head, hands clenched. Maya stared ahead, the courtroom lights reflecting in her eyes like a dying flame. The judge tapped his gavel lightly. Order. The court has heard enough. He looked at the defendants. Miss Grant, Mr. Hayes, do you have anything to say? Richard stood, his voice hoarse. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I was afraid of losing everything. Ethan looked up. Fear of losing power isn't a reason to take a life. Maya stood slowly. All eyes turned to her. Yes, she said, her voice small but clear. I pushed her. Not hard, but I did it. I thought I was winning, but I was just falling. He told me to trust him. He promised to protect me, but he was only protecting himself. Richard turned, shouting, Stop talking! Police stepped forward. The judge banged his gavel. Order. The room shook. Amid the chaos, Elena sat still. Light from the window fell gently on her face, calm but resolute. She placed her hand on her belly, closing her eyes briefly. The judge lowered his voice, delivering the verdict. After reviewing all evidence, the court finds Maya Grant guilty of aggravated assault and obstruction of justice, sentenced to 8 years in prison. Mr. Richard Hayes, guilty of complicity and conspiracy to destroy evidence, 10 years in prison. The room erupted in murmurs, cameras flashing relentlessly. Maya collapsed, sobbing. Richard slumped, his face aging decades in moments. Ethan closed his eyes, breathing deeply. When he opened them, he saw Elena. She nodded faintly. No words were needed. They knew the only thing left was the truth. Outside, a light rain began to fall. The streetlights reflected on the wet pavement, mirroring that fateful morning. Ethan and Elena stepped out of the courthouse, surrounded by microphones and cameras. A reporter shouted, Mr. Monroe, has justice won? Ethan paused, looking into the lens. No, he said softly. Justice doesn't win against anyone. It just reminds us that the truth never dies. 3 days after the verdict, the city returned to normal. The press moved on to new stories. The crowds no longer gathered at the courthouse steps, and Elena Monroe's name faded from headlines. But in the prosecutor's office, Ethan knew. When the public fell silent, the shadows began to speak. That morning, he sat in his office, the lamp still on despite sunlight filtering through the window. On his desk was a case summary. At the bottom, a note in red ink, original video timestamp mismatch with system. He stared at it for a long time. For the first time in years, something tightened in his gut, a gap. He called Helen Brooks. Has the forensic report come in? Yes, Helen replied, her voice low. And you won't like it. Tell me. The leaked video. It's not the original. Frames were inserted. A 0.8-second segment was replaced. It wasn't deleted, it was altered. Ethan stood frozen. The lamplight reflected in his eyes, cold and sharp as a blade. Altered? Yes. Someone made the evidence clearer, almost too perfect. And the only person with system access that day was... Helen stopped. Who? Ethan pressed, his voice tight. You. Silence. Only the dry tick of the clock. That afternoon, Ethan sat alone in a small cafe near the courthouse. On the table, his laptop played the video he'd watched 100 times. He slowed each frame. The image of Maya pushing Elena too crisp, too precise, almost staged. He recalled the message from the day before. I helped you this time, but the truth isn't fully out. K. Ethan tapped his fingers on the table. Who was K? A hacker? An insider? Or someone playing justice by their own rules? He opened the server log. Among hundreds of data lines, one ID stood out: K47X. Ethan zoomed in. The IP address wasn't from the courthouse network it traced to the Federal Data Bureau in Washington, D.C. His heart pounded. If K was from the Data Bureau, the video leak wasn't random. Someone in the government had intervened. And if they altered the video, it wasn't to save Elena, but to control the outcome. That evening, Ethan drove to Helen's apartment. The small unit sat in a quiet neighborhood, its warm yellow light welcoming. Helen opened the door, her face weary. You're here. I'm guessing you saw it. Yes, Ethan said, his voice low. I need access to the case's original data archive. Helen shook her head. No can do. The system's sealed. Orders from above. From who? The Deputy Attorney General. Ethan frowned. Why seal evidence in a closed case? Helen looked at him, her eyes a mix of worry and fear. Because this case isn't just about Richard Hayes. Do you know who invested in his company? Ethan stayed silent. Helen lowered her voice. A political committee. Senator Caldwell's campaign fund. Ethan exhaled sharply. Caldwell, one of D.C.'s most powerful figures, who'd funded dozens of legal campaigns and presented Ethan with the Guardian of Justice Award last year. The pieces clicked into place. Caldwell funded Hayes. Hayes fell. The video was altered. The Data Bureau was involved. And now, everything was sealed before Ethan could touch it. Someone wasn't just manipulating the case, they were controlling the truth. At the same time, in an underground room beneath Capitol Hill, a man in a dark suit stood before a large screen. On it, Ethan Monroe walked out of the hospital. A news ticker below. Federal prosecutor saves sister, exposes corrupt conglomerate. The man chuckled, taking a drag from his cigarette. He thinks he won, he said in a gravelly voice, but he's just walking the path we set. Another voice from the shadows asked, what if he digs deeper? Then he'll learn that justice has limits. A light flared. The man flicked his cigarette ash, revealing a small badge on his lapel. National Legislative Council, Department of Justice. Night. Ethan sat in his office, lights off. Only the blue glow of his screen lit his face. He opened a second anonymous email from K47X. Don't stop, Monroe. They'll erase everything. The real original video is in the Washington data vault. But if you go, be ready to lose it all. The text blinked like a warning. Ethan sat still, hands clasped. Elena's voice echoed in his mind. I just want the truth, Ethan. He closed his eyes, then opened them. Calm, resolute. Then I'll get it, he whispered. The next morning, Ethan filed for a leave of absence. In his request, he wrote one line: temporary leave to pursue manipulated evidence in the Hayes case. As he left the building, Washington's sky was silver gray. He clutched his briefcase, his gaze distant. He knew he was stepping into a realm where the law was no longer a shield but a shackle. Washington's winter sky was heavy with gray. Thin snow dusted the steps of the Federal Data Bureau. Ethan Monroe walked slowly through the security gate, his dark coat's collar pulled high, half covering his face. In his pocket was a small USB, the one left by a mysterious woman. Inside, the hallway was cold, white lights gleaming on polished metal floors. Each step echoed like a countdown. He stopped at a steel door etched with Archive Room Level 5, authorized personnel only. Ethan swiped his special access card. The scanner flashed red. Access denied. He pursed his lips. Not surprising, he muttered. Then he plugged the USB into an auxiliary port. The scanner blinked, displaying a cryptic message. Hello, Monroe. I'm K. Ethan held his breath. The text continued. You think you're chasing justice, but you don't understand justice doesn't exist, only the version of truth they allow. Thank you. A data file opened automatically. Videos, emails, and classified DOJ memos flooded the screen. Among them, a recording labeled Project Cassandra. A voice played through his earpiece, Senator Caldwell's. Hayes was just a front. Maya Grant was chosen not for love, but because she was easy to control. The fall had to happen enough to draw attention, but not enough to kill. When the public rages, we push this to the media to prove justice still works. The people's trust is what we shape, not the truth. Ethan clenched his fist. God, he whispered. The pieces fell into place. The altered video, the leaked footage, even the Guardian of Justice award he'd received. He realized he'd been a pawn in a media game, where justice was staged to maintain public faith. He sank into a chair, breathing heavily. His heartbeat pounded, blending with the hum of the air conditioning. Caldwell's voice echoed like a sentence. People don't need truth. They just need to believe someone's fighting for them. Ethan stood, yanking the USB from the port. But at that moment, the ceiling lights flickered. A voice came over the intercom. "You shouldn't be here, Monroe." He spun around. From the end of the hall, a figure emerged tall, in a black coat, a cap pulled low, face hidden in shadow. "Are you Kay?" Ethan asked, his voice hoarse. The figure stopped, half smiling. "I'm what's left of Kay." "Who are you really?" "Kay isn't one person. It's a system. A group of us who once believed justice could live in the government's hands. Now we know it thrives in the shadows." Ethan took a step forward. "Why help me?" "Because you still think truth can save people." Kay's voice was cold. "We need someone like you, someone the public trusts to tear down the curtain." "For what? To expose everything?" "No." "And?" Kay's eyes glinted in the dim light. "To replace one truth with another." Ethan froze. "You're doing the same thing they are," he said. "No," Kay replied. "We're just taking back the right to define justice." The hall lights went out. When they flickered back on, Kay was gone. On the table lay a second USB and a note. "If you release this, the system collapses. If you stay silent, it keeps lying. The choice is yours." Ethan stared at the note, then out the window where Washington was blanketed in snow. In the glass's reflection, he saw his face, a man caught between two truths. One built by power, the other crafted by rebels. Both were dirty, but one might save those he loved. He opened his phone, pulling up footage of Maya Grant in her cell, speaking to someone on a screen. The other figure was blurred, but in the final frame, he recognized Caldwell. Text on the clip read, "Grant's sentence was voided in the internal system. She'll be released in 72 hours. Ethan stood still. The wind outside rattled the windows. He realized the justice he'd fought for was erasing itself. 3 days later, a brief news report aired on the evening broadcast. Inmate Maya Grant died in a transport vehicle, cause determined as suicide. Ethan sat in the dark, the TV's glow reflecting on his face. He didn't believe it. Couldn't. He opened his laptop. An email from Kay appeared. "Don't trust what they let you see. They killed her because she knew too much." Ethan closed his eyes, leaning back. A tear rolled down, falling onto the cold wooden table. He'd won justice, but lost its soul. He stood, put on his coat, and stepped outside. Snow fell heavier. Amid the dim yellow streetlights, he passed the plaza where people once held signs reading, "Justice for Elena." The banner now lay crumpled, soaked, the word justice fading. Ethan stopped. He pulled out the final USB, gripping it tightly. The wind cut through his collar, icy. One question echoed in his mind. If the truth could save the world, or destroy it, which would I choose? He looked up at the silver-gray sky. Somewhere, a faint light pierced the thick clouds, weak but real. Ethan gave a small smile, then walked on, vanishing into the snow. The last light of day fell on the Capitol's dome like a dying ember. Ethan Monroe stood on Arlington Bridge, the wind fierce, holding the final USB evidence that could topple the system he once believed in. In the wind, he heard his sister's voice. "You don't need to save the world. Just keep it honest." Justice, he realized, wasn't in grand buildings or eloquent verdicts. It lived in those who dared speak truth when all else was silent. The world might not be ready for the truth, but if no one started, the shadows would always win. Ethan tossed the USB into the rushing Potomac, and as it sank, his gaze held no despair, only the peace of a man who'd chosen his path.